Live and exclusive on Salam Media and One Nation FM.
Just to tell you, we'll be chatting about that Quranic competition that we couldn't really talk about yesterday, Africa's finest Quranic competition in Tanzania, coming up shortly. We'll also chat to Rahima Isa as a person who champions South Africa. We'll have a feature on that on the historical mosques in South Africa coming up towards the end of the show, and we'll chat to a representative from the African Muslims Agency about some of the work they do. Looking forward to that in a moment. But let's talk about Sentio Capital themselves. With me is Rayhaan Joosub, who's the deputy CEO, in fact, the co-founder of Sentio Capital. Rayhaan, appreciate your time. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning.
Walaikum assalam, Ashraf. Thank you for having me on the show. Jazakallah.
Thank you. I'm always fascinated by, not just what companies do, but how and why they actually started. So perhaps that's a good starting point. How did it start and why?
Okay, we've got an interesting story. I mean, both my partner, Mohammed Mayet, and myself worked in the industry in different companies. I was at RMB Asset Management at the time. He was at what is now called Bank of America, Merrill Lynch at the time. His focus was on stock picking and picking stocks, and myself on building portfolios and a very quantitative mathematical approach to that. We grew up together. I grew up in the center of town on West Street, next to Beggar Street, with all the gangsters, and Mohammed grew up in Fordsburg, so we knew each other very well, going to Jamaat together and meeting at masjids together all the time. I was very close to his family members who were neighbors of mine, so we knew each other quite well. And we decided, we're tired of working in this corporate world of playing corporate politics all the time, or trying to avoid corporate politics and the difficulties around that. Your Islamic ethos gets challenged consistently in those kind of environments. And we thought, let us start a business that is completely from the ground up, built up on I won't say just only Islamic principles, but humanic principles.
And interesting, you felt that you... Okay, interesting. You felt that you had to start it together. One thing is starting, but you had to partner each other. Now, you know the old adage about don't make your chummy your partner. Why did you do that? Besides your common interest.
Very good point. I think it was something that we were very aware of. Obviously, our family members being in businesses together and the like, it's always a challenge with running businesses together. People get in each other's way, and you've got those kind of issues. But when you start up a business like Sentio, you need very different types of skill sets to actually make it work. Mohammed came, as I said, from a very fundamental bottom-up stock picking kind of mentality. Mine from a portfolio construction, quantitative kind of mentality. And Sentio was all about bringing these two very conflicting skills together to build portfolios that are sustainable. And we talk about this baseline of risk-adjusted return. So you needed to do it with a very different skill set. So that's why it was the two of us. I mean, we built up into a team of 21 people now, all again with very different skill sets. And it's a constant challenge to make sure that you're acting responsibly, that you're treating people with respect, you're not being selfish as a human being, and this is again an Islamic principle. It's a human principle as well, and that's what makes the business work, and that's what makes the business sustainable. And the other important thing is communication.
Yeah, I think communication is particularly important. I mean, the other part, in any business, you have to be able to identify your market and then deliver to that market. So when you start, or even now, right? I mean, who's your market and what's your USP that allows you to deliver and tap into that market?
Okay, I mean, good question. So, I mean, our market is in South Africa started off institutional because we were a small business with a small distribution team. We focused on your bigger pension funds, your bigger life companies, your bigger kind of clients, effectively. So people like the PIC and GPF and your bigger names in the business. Once we built scale, we started to build a retail business around about 6-7 years ago, and tapped the retail market and the direct investment market with our normal products, and in particular our Sharia products. It was always our intention to actually manage a very focused and strong Sharia business, and we've been building that retail business out over time. So when you work in the institutional market, you can have one or two business development people, because there's a few people that you contact. It's the Alexander Forbes, it's the riskier, the big names, effectively, and it's all about your investment performance and your process. But in the retail space, it's all about your branding and getting out there, advertising, being on social media, being on platforms and forums like Salam Media as well, to get your name out there, to get the communication out there and engaging with your client base. And over the last 3-4 years, we've been actually doing that very increasingly and more focused, in a more focused way, to actually get into the retail space. And we're getting very nice traction in the retail space. So as we stand right now, we're a very strong institutional business, but our retail business continues to grow and gets bigger and bigger as we move along, especially in the Sharia product space.
And therefore, very briefly, the type of products that you deliver or that you offer.
So we decided upfront that we're going to provide the full suite of products. We're not going to focus on just equities or fixed income kind of products or just global products. We do the full suite of products. You call them multi-asset products, where you invest in equities, you invest in Islamic fixed income instruments like sukuks, domestically and globally as well, and property as well. So commodities as well. So a fully fledged multi-asset kind of product base. And then we also provide building block kind of products. So people who only want to invest in our equity products, they can invest in our equity products only, in our fixed income systems, to give various access points to specific kind of building blocks. But people in full spectrum of products that we provide in the market. But again, I want to emphasize both domestic South Africa and we invest globally as well.
Okay, now, there's this big buzzword in terms of the global economy about shared value as this alternative to capitalism and socialism, right? I'm looking at your tagline, invest for good. I mean, is that the essence of shared value that's reduced to a company value?
There's a lot of controversy around shared value. There's a lot of skepticism around where it comes from. It comes from the corporates, do the corporates really want shared values, or do they want to have more control over society effectively? I mean, when we started out, we always felt that the way we run our business according to humanic and Islamic principles is the way we want to invest as well. So investing in companies that operate in an environment where governance is proper, people aren't doing funny things in terms of how they run their businesses, like a Steinhoff, for example, or Tongaat, defrauding shareholders and investors. From an environmental perspective, people who are responsible about the environment as well, in terms of making sure that there's a sustainable environment, and whatever we as a society give back to our children, that they inherit from us, is something that's in a better place than what it was. It's again a humanic Islamic principle as well, but also from a social perspective, making sure that you're giving back to communities, looking after your staff, treating your staff in a responsible and a good way, like you would want to treat yourself or be treated yourself in a company. You treat your staff in that way, and making sure that is done in a responsible way. So we call that ESG. It's a buzzword that has become very common. People misuse that to just tick boxes, but ESG is a real thing that you actually need to live in your own business, and you need to invest on those principles as well. So Invest for Good is all about making sure that we want to leave this world a better place than when we than we lived in ourselves. We all got a short life.
Okay.
It's Ramadan. It's a spiritual time. We need to make sure that we are acting responsibly in that regard.
Well, there lots to reflect on. I'll tell you what, my awareness certainly of your company a heck of a lot more, like 100% compared to what I knew about you before, and not just talking about with you guys on Salam Media. I certainly have followed your LinkedIn posts just about every day that we've spoken. So that awareness, that brand awareness, has certainly made an impact on me. So thank you for your time. I know, talking about that, sentiocapital.com is the website. So Sentio-Capital. And then, as we've said, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. At this point in time, nothing on TikTok. I've noticed that, but that's another whole market to discuss for another time. Rayhaan Joosub, appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Jazakallah, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me, Jazakallah.
Thank you. There we are. Fascinating in terms of why people start businesses and how they make that decision, and who do they get on board. First up, Rayhaan Joosub, the co-founder and the deputy CEO of Sentio Capital. Rahima, I understand there's in fact, we're going to pick out. There's some comments we got on the back of Hajj stories, but coming up next, we'll chat to Hassan Chunara from the African Muslims Agency.